Hello and welcome to this ExchangeWire VoxPop. My name is Lindsay Rowntree and I am COO at ExchangeWire. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Stephen Broadhead, who is MD EMEA at Nexon. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me in. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Great to have you in the ExchangeWire towers. And some people, hopefully most people will have heard of Nexon by now, but Nexon's a relatively new formation. Can you explain to us kind of what Nexon is and where it came from?
Absolutely, yeah. So Nexon is a new rebranded shared identity for a number of companies, actually. So this happened in June this year. And what it's done is brought together the key pillars of what is our end-to-end ad tech platform, basically. So a number of very familiar names in the market coming together under that Nexon name. Namely, they are Amobi, Unruly, Spearad, and Tremor. And what that's done is it's enabled us to talk with more clarity and simplification of our offering. It's quite difficult going to clients and talking to them about an end-to-end solution, which has been integrated behind the scenes for quite some time now. But talking to them and throwing out different brand names. So hence the new name Nexon. It's effectively a bridge between the buy and the sell side.
Yeah.
Bringing together advertisers and publishers and utilising technology at each step to add value.
So actually not much has changed internally, it's just that out to the public you are now one team, one dream, Nexon.
Exactly that. It's been important, not just externally, but internally as well. You know, that we want to bring in these teams together and everyone having that shared identity together. But I think the simplification aspect of it is important. When you've got a bunch of very powerful tools like that are coming together and are integrated, you need to come, with one name and come, bring those aspects together. Whether it's the SSP, the DMP, the DSP, the ad server, it all comes under that Nexon name now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Great. I'm very happy that it's all come together. You guys, obviously, the different entities of that, and now Nexon itself focus on video predominantly and CTV, and we're here today to talk more about some of those areas. So from a CTV perspective, I'm interested to understand kind of, it's a topic we talk about a lot. I think there is still some ambiguity around kind of what it means, what it looks like, kind of why advertisers should be taking advantage of it. Explain to me what some of the opportunities and challenges are for advertisers in exploring the CTV space over and above where else they're putting their money, like linear TV, or indeed other channels entirely.
Well, look, it's probably one of the most exciting spaces. We're really pleased to be in it in a big way. You've got a lean-back audience on the biggest screen in the house, probably more data than we've ever had the opportunity, and it's fast-growing. We're seeing the numbers expand very quickly in this area. There's a number of opportunities that brings. From an advertiser point of view, we've seen dwindling audiences on linear TV for quite some time now, so sort of a reconnection with those audiences on apps and on manufacturer screens that are front and centre of any consumer's sort of evenings in front of the television. The advantages and the opportunities are there, not just to extend reach for advertisers. Maybe it brings new advertisers into the ecosystem because maybe budgets were prohibitive for them to get into TV in the past. So that's another area. And then we start to bring the aspects of data. ACR is something that's very close to us right now, and we'll be launching something at the end of this year around automated content recognition data, which is very insightful, gives huge insights at a household level as to how people are watching their TV. And then on top of that, you can start looking at things like creative and understanding how you can properly better engage, whether it's dynamic creative, audience-targeted creative, even something as simple as a QR code, or we're actually doing voice-to-action now as well, utilising smart speakers and driving people through to those environments too. So there's a lot of opportunity there. I think the one thing I'd say around the challenges is trying to keep it simple and not get too carried away.
I mean, there's a few things you mentioned there, like even just ACR, for those, you mentioned obviously what it meant, automatic content, I can't say it myself, automated content recognition. There's a lot of complex terminology. Is that going to be the biggest challenge? People kind of go, what on earth are you talking about? Like, linear is just so simple. Yeah,
I think it is. We've brought this fragmentation into, I'm sure we'll come on to it, the world has changed massively. CTV adoption has changed massively and accelerated through what's happened in the world in the last few years. ACR, yes, is another acronym that comes into the market, just what we need. But yeah, there is complication there, and there is a challenge around that measurement side of things. where you've got lots and lots of data, but it's very, very siloed. And so, yes, advertisers are going to need to pick their partners carefully. They're going to have to start to test and learn and understand how they want to bring this fragmentation together and standardise those metrics to, to support their investments in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned fragmentation there, and it is an incredibly fragmented sector of the industry. None more so than the fact that there's just kind of, you said lean back audience. We're not even just talking about a TV anymore. We're talking about multiple devices. There's so many other areas in which it's fragmented. What are the biggest areas of fragmentation, and kind of are we seeing that actually drive inefficiency in CTV buying and planning?
Look, I think all of those changes that we've seen in the last few years have definitely seen fragmentation. I mean, there's more screens than we've ever had in our lives before. Probably arguably less loyalty to any media platform than we've ever seen before. So all of those things together, and we speak to advertisers about this a lot, that fragmentation is real, and it's a big challenge to find those particular audiences that maybe have moved away from TV or have started using other screens. The pandemic, a lot of people had more time to spend on their TVs. They invested in new technology. They started to look around their TV and see what else they could find on there. Maybe they went through some subscription services, and then realised that there's a hell of a lot of ad-funded content out there, which is right front and centre on those screens, right next to the broadcasters. That's alternative for them to watch. So I think that is a challenge, certainly if you're coming from a TV perspective where you're used to the usual broadcasters, and then you moved into satellite and cable and whatnot. And I think you're now seeing all of these new different access points, whether it be manufacturers' devices, whether it be the apps, whether it be plug-in devices into the TVs. It's very hard to measure. I think from advice that I can give is working with a partner that is, can see that full ecosystem. You don't need to work with a lot of partners in this game, but you need to pick them carefully. And what I'll say about that is, it's about having the reach and the scale, obviously across direct and premium publishers. But also it's around understanding how those companies have invested into the infrastructure.
Interesting.
So, you have, we've all seen it. We've all seen the duplicate ads, that appear in these, and it's very important that there's an education in the market around, working with a single ad decisioning engine and investing in an ad server that is built for this sort of stuff from the ground up, and making sure that consumer experience is exactly what they've come to expect from TV for many decades now. On top of that, where are you going to access your data from? We've talked about ACR already. We've invested heavily into a company called Vida, which is the operating system inside of devices like Hisense and many others, about another 150 manufacturers globally. So having access to that data is very important. It's already launched into our TV intelligence product in the US. And it'll be coming over here fairly imminently towards the back end of this year. And then it's about unique content, unique aspects, and how the company that you're working with can really understand that ecosystem from end to end.
Interesting. And I want to touch upon, we've gone down the complexities, but the opportunities that exist there kind of make it worthwhile. The other big topics of conversation are transparency, and carbon footprint reduction, sustainability. Where does the CTV industry sit within both of those? In terms of transparency and things like brand safety and kind of what your advertisers be able to have control over what they're buying, understanding what they're buying, and knowing what they're getting themselves into. But also they either have very, very strong targets to reduce their carbon footprint, or are only working with partners exclusively that are doing so. How did those two massive topics play into CTV?
Absolutely. So I think it's great that we're addressing them now. First of all, CTV is at a fairly early stage, and as much as we can learn about this now and understand, emissions and how CTV is affected by those, how our publishers are working, is really important at this stage. So to answer your question, they're both absolutely huge topics. Let's take sustainability first of all. I think from our side of things, there's two aspects. We're all learning in this area, and we're all trying to put together as best a picture as we possibly can and do the right things. And it's going to be very important for organisations to be doing this right now. I think. From our perspective, we look at it from an internal and an external perspective. So we look at it from externally. We can work with partners. There's a number of partners in the market who are helping support these and helping educate and measure and understand what the implications of the carbon emissions are. And what we're seeing is, we've partnered with Scope 3 recently and first to market with CTV PMPs, which are greener than your average. It's not to say that they're green, but they're greener for sure. And how we do that is we look at each individual publisher that we work with, and then we start to say, well, actually, these ones are far better, and these ones actually have got a bit of work to do. What that then has is a knockdown effect where we can educate and help educate our partners around that. So we can start to say, well, unfortunately, publisher X, we couldn't put you onto this plan because of this, this, and this, and these are the things and steps you can do to do that. So that's one side of it is kind of like that accreditation from an external partner and with real credibility in market. And then the other aspect is, what are you going to do about it internally? I think it's actually, what's your organisation doing for that?
True.
And that's, if your organisation doesn't have that, it's all very well having a badge and a stamp of proof, but, you've got to do it internally. And I think from our perspective, we've looked at how we retain data. We've obviously got this end-to-end stack now, which has real efficiencies in this area. Anyone who's working end-to-end with us in the US will know that they're working off data sensors which are powered by 90% renewable energy. If you're in EMEA or in APAC running with us end-to-end, that's nigh on 100% as well. So it's important to for every company to be looking at this right now, but it's really important to do what we can, but also learn from the whole industry on this subject at the moment.
Definitely. And then what about the transparency and brand safety side of things as well? Because again, it's going to be a topic on everyone's lips. Exactly,
yeah. Transparency, again, just like sustainability, we see them as table stakes now. We see they're on every RFI that we come across. Transparency has been a big thing for us for the last few years. We've partnered with some of the world's biggest advertisers, and we wouldn't have been able to do that without being able to demonstrate real transparency. Right. Obviously, advertisers have a right to understand where their advertising is running, so it's important to be transparent on the publishers, the environments that you're running in, where the money's going to, how much of it's going towards working media, working with direct partners to get that supply path optimization in place. But it goes further than that as well. I'd say, things like data as well. Yes, you've told me, Nexon, that you are able to target sports fans or do this, but how are you doing it? What data sources are you using? Is it your own data? Is it a third party? And if so, who is it and how are they collecting that data? So transparency goes, certainly further than just where does the advert run, but it's just to answer your question in a much shorter way, both absolutely vital right now and on pretty much every major RFI that we see. Yeah, and it's important, and you're encouraging the advertisers, by the sounds of things, to ask those questions, to ask kind of how you're targeting these people, where you're getting your data from, like really kind of interrogating it properly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we invite it. We're expecting it. We're ready for it. We've put together some very extensive documents, and we're also asked rightly by whether it be advertisers or agencies to fill in huge detail these RFIs, and they take a lot of time, but they are very well worth doing, and they give all the answers that are needed to any advertiser who's looking for that, and it's important to them. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I'm going to jump again. Yeah. My next topic of conversation is measurement in CTV. And again, another huge topic. What does success look like for advertisers? Kind of how are they able to compare CTV with other channels, bring it side by side alongside other channels and really understand what those metrics look like? Yeah, absolutely. So with CTV, we're in a position where we've probably got more data than TV's ever had, probably more so than even the traditional panels. Too much data? Well, maybe, but I'd say the biggest problem is it's siloed. Yeah, it's siloed. Right, it's of course. It goes back to that fragmentation word again. So it's siloed. It's within broadcasters. It's within tech platforms. It's within manufacturers. It's within third-party data companies, and it's all over the place. And because of that, advertisers can't get that holistic view, and they can't. Right now they can't do that. So. What does that mean? I think it means that there's certainly a lot of testing that needs to take place. We need to understand what we want to measure. Yeah. What are those standards that we want to bring together to apply to all CTV inventory, and that we can then make it, something that is actionable for advertisers. I think things like ACR data are definitely going to help in that. Every manufacturer has ACR data. And bringing that data together with other data sources is going to be the solution here. Are we there yet? we're starting to get there, I'd say. Advertisers will need to start testing these solutions with others, and there needs to be a hell of a lot of collaboration around this. But I see this happening, and I think towards the end of this year and as we move into 2024, that's going to be a huge topic that we'll start to see more of. What else can you be doing, though? I think that the various levels of, say, contextual targeting can show things like brand uplift when you're looking at measurement of campaigns as well. We're getting to the stage now where we can start to offer these first in break and last in break experiences. So where your position in break is, what content your advert's going up against can start to show you some stats around your brand uplift. And then there's the kind of the simpler addressability things, like the QR code is still around, and it is working. We're seeing newer types of advertisers, more performance advertisers coming into the platform at the moment, and the QR code features there, and it does add that level of addressability, a bit like kind of the driving people to the voice experiences there. They're all areas that we can take indications from, but we've still got some work to do on that holistic view.
I'm excited about measurement in CTV because it feels like a long way for it to go, but there's so many areas it can go to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it's we're very early in this. Everyone talks about it. It's something but I think we're getting to the stage now where these data pools are actionable. Advertisers are interested in testing, and we'll get there, I think.
Absolutely. And you mentioned contextual there, and obviously contextual and CTV actually go really well hand in hand. But I want to kind of on the topic of contextual, kind of ask you about attention. Attention, again, we're going through all the kind of the hot button topics at the moment, but attention is absolutely massive. Not just from a CTV perspective, but actually from, broadly from a video perspective as well. Kind of what does attention mean to you as a business, and how are you guys getting involved in this huge topic? Yeah,
so it's just to break it down, advertisers want to make sure that their adverts aren't just seen. Viewability has kind of done its job, but it's not really.
It's the new viewability.
It's the new viewability, but it's making sure that there's time, there's impact on that ad, it's seen, it's viewable, there's people spending their time with their eyeballs on it and not just sort of scrolling past it and giving it half a second. It needs to get the impact across. From our point of view, again, there's kind of an internal and an external aspect of what we're doing here. So we have actually, it wasn't called attention back then, but we've been doing facial coding and an analysis of video adverts for about 7 years now, understanding how different videos work, how they come across to advertisers. So the work for us on attention actually starts well before a campaign starts. It comes to creative analysis. We start to understand potential for brand lift, the likelihood of intent to purchase increasing. But most relevant to this question is around the active attention. So we analyse the facial coding. We can do that second by second. We can see happiness, joy, horror, shock, whatever it might be that we need to, and we can feed all this back to the advertiser beforehand. CTV is obviously a big part of this but it's also one of those many screens that we work with, and it's important to treat those screens individually and make sure that we have the creative looking amazing on every single screen, and that might be making some changes that differ by screen size. But that's kind of how we start looking at attention. It's very much an internal thing, and like I say, it's something we've been doing for a number of years now. Then when you add to that the external sort of validation, so a number of companies, just like in brand safety, a number of companies who are coming into the market who are measuring attention, and that's kind of more to do with in-campaign. What's happening, whether it be on the CTV or whether it be on a mobile. What's likely to be driving attention, which positions, which publishers are driving high attention placements. So there we're partnering with Lumen, again first to market for CTV, but we can run these across all formats. So we feel that's a pretty comprehensive offering around the attention space. We think it's obviously a hugely important topic, and it has been. The name attention's probably been about 1.5 years, 2 years in the industry now that we've seen. But I think it's something that I feel that needs to be looked at from a number of angles. But I think those are the kind of the key points as to how you would go about measuring attention. Yeah, not actually the points I would have thought of. I don't think of attention in the kind of the face tracking recognition tool. It's very, very interesting. We're out of time, but I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for having me. And thank you for watching.